Story 1. Entitled Dad at Basketball Court. This is the weirdest interaction I've ever had. I heard about some basketball courts in Edinburgh. So I decided to go and see if they were popular, or just as dead as my city. And well, the day I went, most of them were there was one court. That only had 9 players, so I decided screw it. What's the worst that could happen? I asked them if they needed someone to play and they said yeah, so cool, I get to play a game of basketball, which I've not played a proper game of 5-on-5 for 4 years, which I got to do and played pretty well for being so short, but that's not the where this ends, so here we go. Me, short arse, 5 feet 6 inches, 19. Kyler, good guy who played on my team, 6 feet 8 inches 20 from USA. Soren, another good guy, played on the other team, 6 feet 5 inches, 19 from Norway. Entitled Dad, I'd say probably mid-40s. Small kid, probably pre-teen to early teen maybe. Said nothing, looked nervous and shy. There will be some comments that I'll miss out in case of this dragging too far. So we decided to play a 40-minute games of 4 quarters. This is in the break between third and fourth quarter, and the dad ends up coming past the court. He stops and looks for a minute until we start to walk back onto the court, and he jolts on just past the basket with his kid's hand, dragging this poor kid. Entitled Dad, whoa, what the hell do you think you guys are doing? Kyler, what do you mean, dude, we've been here for around 40 to 50 minutes already. Entitled Dad, exactly, that's enough time to get done what you needed to do. Soren, not exactly, this is currently in use, just wait. Entitled Dad, no, I will not wait 1 second, my son wants to play. Kyler, dude, this is a full court, it's meant to be used for full-sided games, there is smaller courts, not even a 2-minute walk from here. Entitled Dad, well, we want to use this one. Kyler, okay, no bad intentions, but has your kid played much basketball? Entitled Dad, yeah, couple times. Kyler, okay sir, no offense, but this isn't the place for a kid to be starting out. Entitled Dad, how are you going to say that while playing with a kid who can't be that good? He points to me while saying it, I can't help myself but laugh. Entitled Dad, what are you laughing at? Me, I'm sorry mate, but I'm not a kid mate, and hey, am I not great, but I'm alright. Entitled Dad, well, I'm still not moving until we get to play. Soren, please, we are in a rhythm, can we get on with our game? Soren had a little hint of anger in his voice, and we were all starting to be done with his guy. Small kid, Dad, let's just go to the smaller courts, I just want to play. Entitled Dad, see, my son just wants to play and you inconsiderate pricks are just being big bullies for no reason. This is why I voted Brexit, because people like you, he points at Soren and that big yank over there. And Kyler by this point had enough. As he picked this man up, and I have never heard a man scream so loud in my life. His kid, who was tight and stiff the whole time, finally cracked and loosened up a little, laughing. The man's scream had caused a small crowd, to which the man tried to plead his case to hoping turn them against us. It didn't work, he ended up walking away still pleading his argument. In the end we finished out game and even played another game. Guys, if you're not subscribed to the channel, just take a second and click that subscribe button. It does help support me a lot, and I really appreciate it. The Entitled Dad's sudden appearance and demand to use the court even though OP were already playing is quite surprising. It seems like he had a very strong desire for his son to play on that specific court, regardless of the ongoing game. Entitled Dad's attitude and refusal to wait his turn were quite inconsiderate. Despite the fact that there were other courts available nearby, he insisted on interrupting your game. While the dad may have had good intentions to let his son play basketball, his approach was questionable. Instead of finding a suitable time or court for his son to practice, he confronted OP all in a confrontational manner, which wasn't the best way to handle the situation. His mention of voting for Brexit and making comments about nationalities seems quite out of place and irrelevant to the situation. It's interesting how he tried to bring unrelated topics into the conversation in an attempt to justify his actions. Kyler's reaction of picking up the Entitled Dad seems like something out of a movie scene. While his action might not have been the most diplomatic, it certainly caught the dad off guard and diffused the tension. It's also heartwarming to see that the small crowd that gathered didn't support the dad's behavior. It's commendable how OP's team stood up for each other and managed to continue playing despite the disruption. Soren's insistence on continuing the game shows your determination to not let one person's negativity ruin your experience.
Story 1. Doctor refuses to do his job, let's do this then. To set the story, I have epilepsy that is controlled as long as I take my medication. This means I am allowed to drive, I just have to have my neurologist fill out a form basically giving me permission at least once a year. Since I am controlled, I usually only have maintenance appointments about once a year. I also am married with 4 kids. So my being able to drive is important to our daily routine. It's also important to know that my husband has a job where every 4 to 8 years we have to move. This takes place about 1 or 2 years ago with our most recent move. When we move, one of the first things I do is find doctors and schedule appointments for everyone. After getting established with a general doctor, I got a referral to the local neurology department. To go anywhere else is like a 40-minute drive. Day of the first appointment comes and everything goes smoothly. No red flags. I have been in the medical rodeo here in the US for as long as I can remember, so I can usually sense a bad doctor quickly. The hospital doesn't have the best reputation, so I was cautiously optimistic. After that appointment, I was hopeful. Big mistake. A couple months later, I get the yearly letter from the state in the mail requesting a new driving form be filled out by my neurologist. I call my neurologist and find out their procedure. They tell me I can drop it off and they will send it in. My husband offers to take it on his way to work because it's just down the road from work and he knows I hate their parking lot. He drops it off and we assume all is good. They usually give you about 6 months to get this form in. So about 6 months later, I receive a letter from the state saying the form was never received and my license is suspended. Obviously, I am wondering what the hell happened. I did everything on my end. So I call the doctor's office. This is when the nightmare begins. After that annoying menu all doctor offices have when you call, I finally reach a real person. I tell her the situation and ask if they sent in the form. Oh, I am sorry, ma'am, Dr. Smith, name changed, doesn't fill out forms. He just throws those away. A moment of silence, 'cause I was caught off guard by that one. I called several months ago and was assured if I dropped it off, he would fill it out and send it in. Sorry. He won't fill that out. He literally has us throw them straight in the trash. He is required by the state to fill out this form. Does he need me to walk him through it? At this point, I was angry, and my husband, who was listening, offered to take over. He knew I was about to go off and thought if he kept calm, it could be worked out. He also is familiar with the crappy medical system and has helped people talk to doctors before, comes with his job. My husband was on the phone for over an hour and had to call a patient advocate at the hospital to get them to do anything. I was stewing nearby and growing more and more angry. When he hung up, he said the doctor's office reluctantly agreed to fill out the form and the head nurse and patient advocate would make sure it got done. If it had ended there, I might have let things go and just moved on to another doctor. But no. They filled out the form wrong at least 3 times. These forms are super easy and take doctors maybe 30 seconds to fill out for me. I have watched them fill it out. He basically kept checking a box that implied he didn't treat me for epilepsy and my general doctor had to do it. Meaning this lazy ass was trying to get someone else to do it. The flaw in that though is I grew up dealing with this crap and I was by now very educated on how this was supposed to go. So I call them again. I decided to unleash my anger. Neurology department, how can I help you? I have sent over my form from the state 4 times now to be filled out. Once it was thrown out. 3 times it was filled out wrong. I need Dr. Smith to fill out this form today. Your general doctor is supposed to do it. My general doctor does not treat my epilepsy, Dr. Smith does. Are you stupid? The doctor treating my epilepsy has to fill it out. It's pretty easy actually, but if it's too hard for the doctor, I can walk him through it. Or I can call my old neurologist and she can teach him. It's really not required. We don't have to do that. Nice try. I have been doing this for over 10 years. State law requires he fill out this form. Do I need to talk to a lawyer? Oh. Yeah, just come by, and it will be taken care of. My husband, the mediator, stepped in and drove to the hospital with me to get this taken care of. When we get there, he can tell the drive just gave me more time to build more anger. He asked if he could take the form in for me. I happily handed over the form where I had highlighted what needed to be filled out and also written step-by-step instructions on how to fill out the form. I also reminded him if this went wrong again I would be suing and to let them know I would be reporting him to the state medical board. He was at first concerned that the state wouldn't take a highlighted form, but I knew they could very easily print a new one off. He took it in and instead of handing it to the desk he asked for the head nurse. He waited till it was filled out and had printed proof that it had been sent in. I looked at the copy and knew the nurse, trying to desperately resolve an unwinnable situation, had forged the doctor's signature. No hate to the nurse. She just had a shitty boss. After I got confirmation I had my license again, I reported him to the hospital board, filed complaints anywhere in the hospital that could hold him accountable, and made a detailed complaint to the state medical board. I also left scathing reviews online as well. I found a new neurologist 40 minutes away, and the drive is a nice break away from the kids. Shortly after I reported him to the state medical board, I received a letter stating they were opening an investigation into his conduct and that entire department's conduct. They also asked I fill out form stating I was okay with the investigation and yada yada. I filled it out and faxed it over. I found out about a year later that apparently he now has signs hanging everywhere, basically saying if you are mean to me, I will be mean to you. Grinning squinting face, the people said they saw those signs and left and decided also 40 minutes wasn't that bad of a drive. I was also told since then they have had trouble keeping supporting staff in that department. I assumed there was some sort of consequences for him to hang signs everywhere. I typed this on my phone, so sorry about any formatting problems or grammatical errors. It's clear that OP took all the necessary steps to ensure OP's epilepsy was managed properly, including providing the required forms to OP's neurologist. Their refusal to complete the form, along with their dismissive attitude, is not only unprofessional but also potentially dangerous given the implications for OP's ability to drive. The neurologist's refusal to complete the form and their attempts to shift responsibility onto others show a lack of professionalism and accountability. This behavior is not only unjust, but it also places undue stress on patients like you who are just trying to manage their health conditions. OP's persistence in pursuing a resolution to this situation is amazing. It's unfortunate that you had to endure repeated mistakes and non-compliance from the medical staff before finally getting the form filled out correctly. O.P.'s determination to advocate for herself and hold the neurologist accountable is truly inspiring. It's satisfying to hear that OP's efforts eventually led to an investigation into the neurologist's conduct and department practices. It's also quite telling that the neurologist felt the need to put up signs about being mean in response to their own behavior. The fact that other patients decided to seek care elsewhere and that supporting staff left the department highlights the impact of their actions. Finding a new neurologist who respects your needs and fulfills their professional duties is a positive outcome. While the drive might be longer, it's heartening to hear that O.P. view it as a break from your daily routine and a necessary step to ensure your well-being. By reporting the neurologist's behavior to relevant authorities, you not only sought justice for yourself but also contributed to potential improvements in the system and accountability for healthcare professionals. Your actions might lead to better treatment for others in the future. Guys, what if you were in OP's shoes? Will you report him too? Story 3. You are only allowed new boots every 6 months. This happened back in 1989 when I was in the Navy. When I first checked into my squadron, I was issued a couple pair of coveralls and a pair of flight deck boots. They had special treads to prevent from catching debris like gravel or mud, and had steel toes. Being government-issued boots, they were relatively low quality and uncomfortable. You could buy your own boots, but I was new and couldn't afford to buy anything extra. Anyway, I worked on the flight line that was about a half-mile long and which was made of rough concrete. I walked an average of about 5 to 10 miles a day going from aircraft to aircraft doing routine servicing. About 4 months after I was issued the boots, the soles of the boots wore down to where the tread was bare and the leather on the toes wore out, showing the steel inserts. I went to the supply office to see if I could get another pair of boots. There was an E5 supply clerk in the office who I later found out was a super Karen and was sleeping around with some of the senior enlisted personnel. She asked when I got my current pair of boots, and I told her about 4 months ago. She said that I was only allowed new issued boots every 6 months, and if I wanted new boots, I had to buy them on my own. Being a newbie, I just took her word for it and just left. Looking back, I should have told my supervisor, but I thought he would have told me the same thing. About a week later, the soles on the front of the boots started peeling off and flapping. So I got some wire and sewed the soles back temporarily. I figured they just needed to hold on for a few more weeks. I also duct taped the toes to cover the exposed steel inserts. One day, I was helping unload a helicopter that just came in from a mission, and one of the pilots happened to be the squadron commanding officer. He noticed the duct tape on my boots and asked why I didn't get new boots from the supply office. I told him the supply clerk would not issue me any because it has not been 6 months since I got my current pair. He had a disgusted look on his face and told me to come with him. He went straight to the supply office and sternly told the clerk to get me some new boots now. The clerk looked like she was gonna cry. She didn't even try to argue with the commanding officer. After she gave me the boots, the CO dismissed me and told me to close the door when I left. I guess she got a royal ass chewing after I left. There is another story indirectly involving me and her, but I'll post that later. It's clear that the work OPs were doing on the flight line was taking a toll on him issued boots due to the rough conditions and constant walking. The fact that OP's boots wore out within just a few months speaks to the need for more durable footwear in such demanding environments. The supply clerk's attitude and unwillingness to issue you new boots, despite the condition of your current ones, is disappointing. Her response seemed unhelpful and almost punitive, which isn't the kind of support one would hope for from a supply office. The moment OP's commanding officer noticed his boots and intervened on his behalf was a turning point. It's great to see that he took swift action and rectified the situation by making sure OP received the new boots he needed. His no-nonsense approach to addressing the issue likely made an impact on the supply clerk. Your initial decision to accept the supply clerk's response without questioning it is understandable, especially as a newcomer. However, your story underscores the importance of speaking up when faced with situations that seem unjust or unreasonable. In this case, your commanding officer's intervention made all the difference. The part where the commanding officer told you to close the door when you left the supply office adds a touch of humor to the story. It's a small detail that paints a vivid picture of the situation and the commanding officer's demeanor. OP mention of having another story involving the supply clerk piques curiosity and suggests that there might be more interesting anecdotes to share from your time in the Navy. What's up everyone? If you like this video, hit the subscribe button now.